bear sex. Now that I have your attention, we need to talk about the line that Larian just crossed with Baldur's Gate 3. It's no secret that different people are into different things, ranging from vanilla interests to the darker and more illegal side of human desire. In the real world, when someone finds out that someone did something questionable on Twitter, it's often ratioed into oblivion with comments sharing their disgust. In a video game world, going on a murder spree in any violent game is fine because it's not real. Some people, like my own mother, would be absolutely horrified to see some of the things I did in Dead by Daylight, and as proud as I was with some of my more epic hag plays, there is no way I would share them with her. In that same vein, there are some things in games that make me uncomfortable in ways that putting people on meat hooks doesn't. However, that line isn't shared by everyone. Things I find disturbing, other people may have no problems with. Skyrim famously made it impossible to attack the children in the game, but a mod downloaded over 400,000 times removed that immortality from those children, thus making it possible to deliberately hurt them. Of course, the mod is just supposed to add to the immersion of a dragon attack on a city, because everyone would die in that situation, being attacked by a dragon. The difference, again, comes with the intention. Is a player installing the mod to add to their immersion, or are they adding to it for a less socially acceptable reason? This is a line we find ourselves reaching in Baldur's Gate, and how far Larian has taken character romance in their game. But before we go to that dark corner of Baldur's Gate 3, let's talk about anime. Yeah, you sickos know what's coming. There are two groups of people in the anime loli argument. One that says it doesn't matter how old the creators say a character is, if a character looks underage, they are children and should be off limits as a romantic interest. The second group are pedophiles, looking for a legal outlet for their illegal interests. The argument that a character is a bazillion years old has no merit because the artist drew a child as an object of attraction and later gave it an arbitrary and irrelevant age to make it seem okay. Bestiality and zoophilia are unfortunately the next line that artists, and in this case game devs, have chosen to cross. And what are they and their community saying in its defense? Well, the bear is a druid that can turn into a bear, so it's actually a dude and not a bear, so it's totally fine. In my opinion, that's the exact same defense that anime enjoyers use when directing their attraction towards childlike characters. Thankfully, Baldur's Gate will let you leave the druid in a goblin cage being pelted with rocks by goblin children, which, as a side note, you have to kill if you want to save the druid. Yet another questionable choice that's forced on the player in the name of forwarding the plot. Now, here's the important thing. It's only my opinion that bestiality in any form and childlike romantic interests should be purged from all forms of entertainment and their creators barred from working on large-scale public projects with similar characters for the rest of their lives. But why am I okay with putting people on meat hooks? Whether any of these activities are acceptable or demonized are strictly tied to an individual's line of tolerance for the subject matter. What one person finds disgusting and offensive, another may have no problem with. And then there are other activities that are collectively rejected by society as punishable offenses. Protecting children and animals are examples of this. There are people whose lines are so far in the debauchery zone that they'll have no problem actively seeking out the most disgusting scenes in Baldur's Gate 3. Apparently, there are scenes in the game not even related to romance that are so horrific that Wolfhard FPS had to turn away from his playthrough when it came up. Why did Larian decide to take the game this far past the line? It's very simple. That is where their own lines of decency are. Sex with animals and hurting children are apparently just as fine as long as they're not actually human children or an actual bear. They just resemble them. Now again, while I may think that this is disgusting and shouldn't be in the game at all, it's still just a video game, and I can actively avoid the worst of the scenes and situations with my own choices. But then that comes into question, what quests or items are locked behind developing relationships that far with your companions? As long as this sort of thing or those scenes aren't forced on me in order to accomplish a goal, quest, or gain an item, then I guess we don't have a problem. I hope that anything locked behind romance options will be attainable through other routes or they're unnecessary for the game as a whole, but we'll have to wait and see what happens. If other people want to dive in and live their own questionable fantasies with animals in the comfort of their own homes, and as long as they're not hurting anyone, then there's not much else that should be said, right? And people have been doing this for the entirety of human history. Baldur's Gate 3 is going to be a very big release, and it has so much more going for it than the Pornhub quality sex scenes that the devs decided to put in there. The story is intriguing and the replayability is going to be pretty wild considering the size of the area and how easy it's going to be to hide secrets within that city. I'll personally be playing this and Starfield like many other players who've been waiting for a new RPG, and I may not even get a new game after this. These games may be it. But then that leads us to another issue, or maybe the same issue. Baldur's Gate 3 has so much going for it and has the potential to be a phenomenal experience for a very long time. So why was it necessary to stain the reveal with bestiality? The answer is sales, of course, and I can't deny that it's good for marketing. I've seen more people in multiplayer lobbies in the past few days than I have in months, and the visibility on YouTube has exploded as well. In that same vein, content creators are finding explosive viewerships thanks to the more spicy content in the game. But now, because of that, playing Baldur's Gate 3 is in itself a liability. Wolfheart's original video released today talking about his experience playing the full game was age restricted when he was talking about the companion romance. In order to take care of that, he had to cut out that section of the game of his review and re-upload the video without that section. Streamers are going to be blindsided by scenes of sex and overt violence that they weren't expecting, and there's a possibility that after release we'll be hearing more stories of content creators getting age restricted and even banned as a result of playing Baldur's Gate 3 blind and running into problematic cutscenes. We know this is true because it happened to Larian live when they first revealed this scene. But why couldn't the game just be a good old-fashioned D&D campaign? Everyone knows that D&D campaigns were all about the story, and sex between characters never happened. There are plenty of horror stories of players, particularly women, who get into a D&D campaign and find themselves targeted for risque comments and advances by characters in-game and outside of it. What's really sad is that that is what's happening to us right now. We are a group of players who were wildly excited to play this adventure to Baldur's Gate and see what our dungeon masters, Larian, had in store for us. And then we get f***ed in the ass by a bear. Unwanted, unwarranted, and unnecessary, but here we are. And as a result, this is now the face of Baldur's Gate 3. A game that puts the stereotypical sex-crazed incel dungeon master putting you into unwanted sexual situations in your fantasy adventure game right in your own home. A modesty filter has been mentioned, but no real details on it have been talked about, so we don't actually know what it will cover and what it'll actually change in the game. But I'll probably set mine pretty high since Larian has proven that they've crossed a line that I really wish they didn't cross. As I was editing this on the 12th, Larian released a community update talking about a lot of things, and the one thing relevant to our discussion here is the modesty filter. You can toggle the viewability of genitals and cinematic nudity. Whether that means the scenes are removed from your experience completely, or if it just blurs the image is anyone's guess right now, so I'm still not sure what that even means. But again, we'll just have to wait and see. Oh, and I guess there's bondage in here too. This, of course, is only my opinion, so let me know whether you agree or disagree in the comments below. I'll still be playing this with my group, and if they're interesting enough, I'll probably throw clips up on the channel for fun, so look forward to that. After all, this is still Dungeons & Dragons, and at the end of the day, the point should be to enjoy the experience and the adventure with your friends. Unless you're playing single player, and then I guess you'll be playing with yourself, won't you? But for now, like the video if you liked the video, dislike it if you disliked it, and until next time, I'm Space Coconut, and you're welcome.